Lanterns was one of the few projects where I didn't watch any trailers or teasers whatsoever. I knew that I'm going to watch the show. And even with all that, I found out that Kyle Chandler is going to play Hal Jordan and Aaron Pierre is playing Jon Stewart. And that piece of information alone was enough for me to realize that they're going to pass the torch, or in this case, the ring, from Hal Jordan to Jon Stewart in this show, and Hal is not going to be the main Green Lantern in the DCU. So I'm not a big comic book guy. I've never read a DC comics before, but as far as my little research on internet tells me, Hal Jordan is the main Green Lantern on DC Comics with more than 35 years of stories and events under his belt. Of course, Jon Stewart is also considered one of the main Green Lanterns of Earth. He was introduced in 1971. He was originally introduced as a backup Lantern to Hal Jordan. No problem with Jon Stewart at all. I've only watched some clips from the Justice League animated show, and he was fun and fine in them. The problem begins when you start thinking about Hal Jordan as a character and how he has been treated in live action. Despite being the main Green Lantern in DC Comics for over 35 years, we've only seen him in a live-action movie once, in the Ryan Reynolds 2011 Green Lantern movie, and almost everyone hated that. And that was 15 years ago. Immediately after learning Kyle Chandler is playing Hal Jordan, I asked myself, why? I'm not a big comic book guy, so you'd think I wouldn't care if we have Hal Jordan as our Green Lantern or Jon Stewart, who cares? But after seeing Kyle Chandler's great performance in episode 1, and also thinking about what happened to this character over the last 2 decades, I'm thinking, why? Why are we skipping all these great and interesting events that he had in the comics? Why not get a trilogy or at least a few seasons and see him live through all these events and storylines and then pass the torch to Jon Stewart, and then we'll see all of them. We will see Jon be Green Lantern and do his thing. Why did we have to choose exactly here, right? We could have had both. So one of the reasons apparently is that James Gunn wanted his DCU to be lived in, and the premise here is that superheroes or metahumans, whatever you want to call them, already exist. So I guess one of the reasons they did this is that, and they just wanted to say that, hey, we had superheroes for like almost 40 years or however long it was. But to me at least, that doesn't seem like a fair and reasonable justification for throwing out one of your most interesting and lesser adopted characters. Because like I said, we've seen one movie and almost everyone disliked that movie. I didn't mind it that much simply because like I said, I'm not a comic book guy. So what they did with the villain in that movie didn't really bother me that much. It was just really kind of bizarre. But to think of the next time we're going to see Hal Jordan is in a HBO series and how he's being played by an actor in his late 50s and he's going to be killed off in the first episode, it just doesn't make sense to me that much. I'm not gonna be as harsh as some of the creators out there that they're saying, oh, this show hates superheroes. I don't see enough evidence yet to say that it's been just one episode, and also I don't want to say that this was one of the greatest things ever. If you want to judge, if you're criticizing people who are saying this show is garbage just based on one episode, you cannot also say that this show is the best thing ever. just after one episode, right? It's a bit of a double standard here. That doesn't really make sense to me. After digging up some info on the show and how it was all conceived, I found out that even before James Gunn took over DC Studios, they wanted to make a Green Lantern show. And apparently, producer Greg Berlanti, hopefully I pronounced that right, was developing a Green Lantern series for HBO Max since 2019 and had written a full season of an, expensive spacefaring epic, something that a lot of fans actually expected and wanted from a Green Lantern show to be. But HBO executives did not really like the idea of a massive budget and kept giving the team a very specific note. They wanted a cheaper, grounded show that was essentially True Detective with power rings. And obviously, after watching the first episode of Lanterns, I think studio actually succeeded with that, and the show does have a really heavy true detective tone. And maybe one of the reasons they are going with a older Hal Jordan is for him to fit this tone and fit this kind of atmosphere, but again sacrificing a really rich and beloved, I would say, character in the comics, at least, for any of these shenanigans really sounds unreasonable to me. I feel like I have to clarify that I actually liked the episode, and I think overall it's going to be a good and entertaining show. But the question is, was this the right way to tell a Green Lantern story? I'm not sure about that yet, and maybe they prove me wrong. Maybe this is the greatest superhero show we've seen in a decade or whatever, but I feel like my point still stands that what's their gripe with Hal Jordan, right? What did he do wrong? What's the reason he's been, first of all, ignored for all these years? Because we had that movie in 2011, and in the Snyderverse, Hal Jordan was almost completely ignored. I don't remember an instance where he was even mentioned. Maybe it's my weak memories, but it was kind of weird that even in the DCEU and in the Snyderverse, we had two Aquaman solo movies, and Green Lantern wasn't even included in the Justice League movie. And we had Cyborg there. So again, I'm not a big comic book guy, but having Cyborg, having two solo movies of Aquaman, and not even trying to have Green Lantern on your team was a little bit weird, even back with the DCEU, and now we've started with the DCU. I guess Lantern is one of the first projects they're working on, all things considered, so the hero and the lanterns in general are getting a little bit of spotlight, but again, we are doing Hal Jordan dirty here and completely skipping through his stuff and killing off one of the foundational members and one of the key characters of the DC Comics in just the first episode. It's just bizarre. Even if they really wanted this grounded tone, I think they could have easily found so many other ways to do it without skipping Hal Jordan entirely. For example, when I was digging through all the stories that we're probably not going to see because of this skipping, there was one that piqued my interest, and it's called Hard Traveling Heroes. So again, never read the comic, but from what I can gather from the internet, the premise is Green Arrow and Hal Jordan get into a beat up pickup truck and go on a road trip across America to discover the real country. And instead of fighting supervillains, Hal and Oliver fought systemic real world issues that comic books had previously been too scared to touch. And I believe this was a far better option than whatever they're going with right now. Again, it's too soon to judge, but we have enough information, and I'm saying this based on what is happening to Hal Jordan, because if they wanted it a grounded story, well, this is grounded, this is a terrestrial, if you will. They didn't need a $200 million budget for this, and the show that they're making right now isn't exactly cheap either, so I don't think adopting this series would have really changed their budgeting. Also, would have solved my biggest problem with the show yet, and that is instead of using Hal as a disposable mentor just to build a instant universe history, I guess, they could have given him a real substantial arc. And also, it would have solved the lived in universe problem that James Gunn has. Because at the time of this comic, I believe Hal has been Green Lantern for at least, 5 to 10 years. Which would have been almost as the same as what James Gunn did with Superman, where he didn't tell a origin story, but also we didn't skip like an entire character arc. But yeah, I'm gonna stop repeating myself, and justice for Hal Jordan. The more I read into his character and what has happened to him in Hollywood, the more I'm both interested and kind of infuriated by how this specific character has been treated by the studio. I know that most people actually liked the first episode a lot, and I did too. Like I said, I think the show has great potential. It can be really good, but that doesn't really change how they're handling Hal Jordan. That's all I got for this video. Tell me how you feel about the first episode, Hal's death, and especially if you're a comic reader, with everything that you know now and everything that happened to Green Lantern in Hollywood, how would you make a Green Lantern project, either a show or a movie? And overall, are you happy with how DCU is handling Green Lantern and Hal Jordan and even Jon Stewart? Comments down below, and I see you in the next one.